My sister lied about being invited to my wedding, then showed up in a white dress with her 4 uninvited children and demanded special treatment. So I did this, and she went nuclear on me throwaway because my sister follows my main account. Longtime lurker, first-time poster. I, female, 29, honestly can't believe I'm even writing this right. My wedding is tomorrow, and I just found out my sister Bethany, female, 33, is planning to show up uninvited with her 4 kids after I specifically told her not to come. I need advice before I completely lose it. Some background. I've been with my fiancé Jonathan, male, 31, for 6 years, engaged for almost 2. We've been planning our wedding for a long time. We had to book our venue 22 months in advance because it's this historic mansion that only does a few events each year. We're paying a fortune for it, and it's exactly what we've always wanted. We decided on an adults-only wedding with about 80 guests, partly because the venue has some restrictions, but honestly, we just wanted an evening without kids running around. Nothing against kids in general, but we wanted people to be able to relax and not worry about watching their children. We made this clear on all our invitations. No exceptions. The problem is my sister Bethany. Oh my freaking God, where do I even start with her? She has 4 kids, 9, 7, 5, and 3, with her husband Fred, who's basically never around because he works all the time. So she's stuck with the kids 24/7, which I get must be hard. But she uses them as an excuse for everything and never actually parents them. Bethany has this pattern of making everything about her. Like she announced her first pregnancy at my college graduation party. Everyone was there to celebrate me finishing my physical therapy degree, which was super hard, by the way. I worked my ass off. And suddenly, everyone's attention was on her and her pregnancy. She knew exactly what she was doing. Then at my engagement dinner, she showed up in this really low-cut dress that was so inappropriate for a family event. My grandparents were there. And at our cousin Melissa's wedding 2 years ago, she brought all her kids, even though the invitation said adults only, just like ours. The kids were running around during the ceremony, knocked over a centerpiece during dinner, and one of them smeared cake all over the bride's mom's dress. And Bethany just laughed and said kids will be kids, like it was cute or something. So about 7 months ago, I decided to meet with Bethany at our parents' house to explain the no kids situation directly. I wanted to be super clear so there would be no misunderstandings later. I told her our wedding would be adults only with no exceptions. She immediately got upset and asked if I hated her kids. I explained it wasn't personal and that no children were invited, not even our cousin's kids. She claimed her kids were better behaved than other children, which isn't true given their history. When I explained about the venue policies, she asked who would watch her 4 kids during the ceremony. I suggested Fred could stay home with them, but she got mad about how he works hard all week and deserves to attend family events. She kept talking about family tradition for weddings. When I reminded her about what happened at Melissa's wedding, she got really defensive. Then she left, saying I would regret excluding family, which felt like a threat. Over the next few months, I kept hearing from relatives that Bethany was telling people she was invited to the wedding. My aunt called to ask if her daughter could bring her baby, if Bethany's bringing all 4 kids. My cousin texted asking what the plan was for the kids' table and mentioned Bethany had been discussing it. I probably should have confronted her directly, but honestly, I was so stressed with all the wedding planning and my job. I'm a physical therapist and standing all day is exhausting, that I just didn't. I figured she was just saying that to save face and wouldn't actually show up uninvited. That would be insane, right? I did talk to my parents, Martin, male 62, and Patricia, female 58, about it. They said they would talk to Bethany and that I shouldn't worry about it. I took that as them supporting me and handling the situation. Looking back, I think they might have been trying to convince me to just invite her to avoid drama. I don't know. I always stand up for myself in other situations, but with Bethany, it's complicated. Family stuff always is, I guess. Everyone always tells me to be the bigger person, and she's your only sister, and blah blah blah, so I tend to just avoid conflict with her to keep the peace. So now it's the day before my wedding. I was at the venue for our rehearsal, getting my makeup done for the rehearsal dinner tonight. My maid of honor, Joanna, told me Bethany was there with all her kids, and she's wearing white. I thought she was joking, but then the venue coordinator came in and confirmed that Bethany was telling everyone she was invited and had already seated herself and the kids in the front row that was reserved for immediate family. I'm supposed to be at my rehearsal dinner in an hour, and I'm hiding in the bathroom typing this. Jonathan is trying to handle the situation, but I don't know what to do. Do I confront her? Have security remove her? Let her stay to avoid making a scene? Please help. Edit. Thank you all for the quick responses. To clarify some things people are asking. 1. Yes, my parents are here and know she's shown up, but they're just looking uncomfortable and not doing anything. My dad keeps saying, "Let's not make a scene," which is his go-to phrase for anything uncomfortable. 2. The venue does have security, but they said since she's claiming to be immediate family, they want me to confirm whether she should be removed. 3. No, I have absolutely no idea where her husband Fred is right now. Probably working as usual. Edit 2. Sorry I'm not responding to individual comments. The rehearsal dinner is in 20 minutes and I'm still hiding in the bathroom. Jonathan just texted that Bethany is now telling everyone I forgot to send her invitation and she knows it was just an oversight. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Now for the first update. First of all, thank you all so much for all your comments and support on my last post. I was literally hiding in the bathroom, having a panic attack when I posted, and all your advice really helped me get through what turned into the most stressful day of my life. Which is saying something, because I once had to retake my PT board exams after my car broke down, and I missed the first scheduled test by 4 minutes and had a complete meltdown. But that's a whole other story, lol. It's been 2 weeks since the wedding, and I'm finally calm enough to update everyone on what happened after I discovered Bethany had shown up uninvited with all 4 kids and was wearing white of all colors. Honestly, I still can't believe she did this. So after my mini breakdown in the bathroom, I tried to handle things diplomatically, like I always do with Bethany. I sent my dad to talk to her because I was afraid I would start screaming and ruin my makeup that took 2 hours to do. I mean, I'm not normally super into makeup, but this was my wedding day, and I paid a lot for someone to make me look like I actually know how to contour, which I totally don't. By the way, my everyday look is basically just mascara and chapstick because who has time for more when you're on your feet all day? Anyway, my dad came back looking really upset. He said Bethany was insisting that my mom had told her she could come and that family should stick together, and some other BS about how she couldn't find a babysitter, even though she's known about the wedding date for literally almost 2 years. I was so mad. I could barely see straight, but what was I supposed to do? The ceremony was already 20 minutes late starting and all our guests were waiting. Oh, and by the way, I spent months finding the perfect wedding dress. It reminded me of my late grandmother's wedding photos. She passed away when I was 16 and we were super close. So yeah, I wasn't about to let Bethany ruin this moment I'd been planning forever. I decided to just proceed with the ceremony. Looking back, maybe I should have had security remove her right then, but I honestly thought she would at least control her kids during the actual ceremony part. Nope. During the ceremony, it was a complete disaster. The 3-year-old was crying loudly during our vows, and Bethany barely even tried to quiet him down. Like, she would occasionally whisper shh without actually doing anything. Who does that? The 5-year-old kept running up to the altar area, trying to touch my dress. My cousin told me later the kid had some kind of purple juice that I'm sure would have stained everything if he actually touched me. The 7-year-old was playing games on a tablet with the sound on during our ceremony. I'm not even kidding. And Bethany just sat there like this was normal behavior. The 9-year-old kept asking when they would get to eat cake, like loudly asking, "When's the cake? Is it cake time yet?" during the vows. During the vows, the officiant had to pause so many times. This poor woman kept trying to keep things on track while giving these increasingly frustrated looks at Bethany. She later told me she had never seen such disruptive behavior at a wedding before, and she's done hundreds of ceremonies. My parents just sat there looking embarrassed but did nothing. My mom kept giving these little awkward smiles to the guests around them like, "Kids will be kids," which made me want to scream. Jonathan was amazing through all of this. He just kept squeezing my hand supportively whenever one of the kids would interrupt. I could tell he was getting annoyed too, but he stayed calm. I almost forgot my vows because I was so distracted by all the disruptions, and I could see our guests getting more and more uncomfortable. Some of them were exchanging looks, and I saw my college roommate actually covering her mouth in shock at one point. I never make a scene at important events. I'm usually the peacekeeper in any group, but I was about ready to scream at everyone. The ceremony felt like it took forever, even though it was supposed to be only 20 minutes. Then the reception started, and things got even worse. Bethany had seated herself and all 4 kids at the head table, like the table reserved for the bride, groom, and wedding party. My maid of honor, Joanna, and 2 of my bridesmaids had to awkwardly find other places to sit because Bethany and her kids took their spots. Joanna looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't want to cause more issues. Love her for that. She texted me later saying, "What the frick is happening?" which basically summed everything up. Then Bethany started complaining loudly about the boring adult food and demanded the catering staff provide chicken nuggets and fries for her kids. The menu had been finalized months ago, and we specifically chose a fancy plated dinner because, no kids were supposed to be there. The catering manager came over to me looking super stressed and asked what to do. I told them to just give the kids whatever they could come up with from the kitchen, and they ended up making some plain pasta. The venue charged us an extra $120 for this last-minute addition, which I'm still bitter about. I thought my mom was on my side because she looked embarrassed, but then she pulled me aside and suggested I just let Bethany have her way for one day to keep the peace. Are you kidding me? This was my wedding day, the one day that should have been about Jonathan and me. I've been letting Bethany have her way my entire life, and look where it's gotten me. The kids were running around the dance floor during our first dance. The 5-year-old nearly tripped our photographer who was trying to get shots. Again, Bethany did nothing. She was at the bar getting what was probably her 3rd or 4th drink by this point. Then came the photo situation. We had a whole schedule for photos that the photographer had carefully planned out. Bethany approached me demanding her kids be included in all the formal wedding photos. I tried to firmly explain they weren't even supposed to be there in the first place, and adding 4 unpredictable children would mess up the whole timeline. Bethany said I was being selfish for excluding her innocent children from family memories. She was talking super loud so people could hear her, making me sound like the villain. Jonathan stepped in and said we needed to follow the schedule for photos that we had already planned and paid for. Then Bethany accused him of turning me against family, which is such a ridiculous thing to say about the most family-oriented person I know. My mom suggested we just take a few photos with the kids to be nice. Again, taking Bethany's side. The photographer pulled me aside and whispered that adding more people would take extra time, and we were already behind schedule because of the ceremony delays. Meanwhile, the 3-year-old was having a full meltdown because he was tired. It was way past their normal bedtime by this point, and Bethany was just ignoring him while continuing to argue with us about the photos. I reluctantly agreed to one quick family photo with them just to end the argument, but I was seething inside. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and I was spending it managing my sister's mess. Again, like always. The breaking point came when I went to check on the wedding cake before the cutting ceremony. Our cake was really special to us. 3 tiers with lace piping that matched my dress. We actually cut our honeymoon short by 2 days to afford it. I found Bethany's 7-year-old with his finger in the back of the cake, licking frosting off his hand. There was a huge gouge in the bottom tier of our wedding cake, and Bethany was nowhere to be found. I swear I felt something snap inside me at that moment. When I finally found her and confronted her about it, she laughed and said, "Nobody will see that part anyway," and then went back to chatting with some distant cousin she hadn't seen in years. Like it was no big deal that her kid had just destroyed something that meant so much to us. That was it. I was done. I looked at Jonathan and I could tell he was at his breaking point too. After everything we'd put up with all day, this was just too much. I'll detail exactly what I did next and the huge fight that followed in my final update. Let's just say I finally stood up for myself, and it did not go over well with certain family members. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I didn't have Bethany removed immediately when she showed up. Honestly, I've spent my whole life avoiding confrontation with her. Everyone always tells me she's your only sister and family is family, and I guess I've been conditioned to just put up with her behavior. But this was different. This was my day that I had been planning for almost 2 years. Edit 2. To clarify about my parents, my dad is conflict avoidant to an extreme degree. His motto is literally, let's not make a scene about everything. When I was 12 and broke my arm at my cousin's birthday party, he waited until after cake to take me to the hospital because he didn't want to make a scene, and my mom has always had a weird blind spot when it comes to Bethany's behavior. I think she feels guilty because Bethany had a harder time in school than I did. I was always the easy child, so she overcompensates by letting Bethany get away with everything. Edit 3. For those asking about Fred, Bethany's husband, he showed up about halfway through the reception, claiming he had to work late, which is his usual excuse. He barely interacted with the kids and spent most of the time at the bar. Edit 4. To answer everyone asking if the venue had security, yes, they did, and they were the ones who eventually helped us handle the situation. More on that in the next update. Edit 5. Thanks for all the awards and support. I'm still processing everything that happened, but I promise to post the final update soon. It's been a crazy 2 weeks dealing with the aftermath. Some of you have suggested going low contact with my family, and believe me, I'm seriously considering it. Now for the second update. So first, I want to apologize for taking a whole month to post this final update. A lot has happened, and honestly, I needed time to process everything before I could even write it all down without having another breakdown. Thank you all so much for your support on my previous posts. I read every comment even though I couldn't respond to most of them. There were hundreds. Oh my fricking God. So last time I left off, I had just discovered that Bethany's 7-year-old had stuck his finger in our wedding cake and taken a huge chunk out of the bottom tier. I stood there staring at the damage for what felt like forever, but was probably only like 20 seconds. Our cake was really special to us. Jonathan and I had actually cut our honeymoon in Hawaii from 10 days to 8 days just to afford this specific cake design. It had this beautiful lace piping that matched the pattern on my dress. I immediately looked for my parents, thinking they would finally step up and do something about Bethany. My dad was at the bar acting like nothing was happening. My mom was chatting with some relatives we barely even know from out of state, laughing like everything was fine. I'm standing there on the verge of tears, and nobody in my family seems to care that my wedding is being completely ruined. I went back to find Jonathan, who was talking to the DJ about delaying the cake cutting, which was supposed to happen like 10 minutes ago, according to our timeline. He could tell something was wrong as soon as he saw my face. I remember grabbing his arm and just saying, "The cake, it's Bethany's kid." And I couldn't even finish the sentence because I was so upset. Jonathan and I went to find our wedding coordinator, who was already dealing with a million other issues that Bethany and her kids had caused. Apparently, the 5-year-old had knocked over a centerpiece and spilled red wine on the vintage linen tablecloths that cost extra to rent. The three of us quickly discussed our options, and the coordinator suggested it was time to ask them to leave before anything else gets damaged. And that was it. Something inside me just snapped. I've spent my entire life letting Bethany walk all over me, always being told to be the bigger person, and that's just how she is, and family is family. But this was my wedding day, the day I had been planning for almost 2 years, the day that was supposed to be about Jonathan and me starting our life together. I marched over to where Bethany was standing at the bar, ordering what was probably her 5th or 6th drink of the night. I was shaking, but trying to stay calm because I didn't want to completely lose it in front of all our guests. I told Bethany I thought it was time for her and the kids to leave. She laughed in my face and said she was just starting to have fun, like this was some casual get-together and not my wedding that she crashed. I told her she was never invited, that she and her kids had disrupted the entire ceremony, taken seats from my actual invited guests, damaged property, and now her son had ruined our wedding cake. She rolled her eyes and told me nobody cares about that stuff except me, and that I've always been so uptight about everything. Then she said everyone had been telling her how much better she looked in white than I did, and asked if I was jealous. I couldn't believe she was wearing white to my wedding and had the nerve to say I was jealous. Jonathan must have seen my face because he immediately appeared beside me. Jonathan told her very calmly that we'd been patient all day, but we were done now, and she needed to take her children and leave. Right then, I noticed that Bethany's two youngest kids were running between tables completely unsupervised, again, almost knocking over an elderly guest who was trying to walk to the bathroom. The 9-year-old was at the dessert table, grabbing handfuls of our custom cookies that were supposed to be wedding favors. I made eye contact with the venue's security guard, who had been watching the situation, and nodded slightly. He immediately started walking over. Bethany noticed and asked what I thought I was doing in this really loud voice that made people turn to look at us. I told her she could either leave voluntarily or security would escort her out, her choice. She yelled that I couldn't kick out family, and then she grabbed my arm really hard and asked what was wrong with me. The security guard stepped between us while Jonathan went to gather up her kids. I could see the venue manager talking to my dad, who finally looked concerned now that things were getting really bad. Bethany started crying these dramatic fake tears and saying I was ruining their relationship forever and traumatizing her children. And how could I do this to my own sister? Mind you, she was the one who showed up uninvited wearing white with 4 kids to an adults-only wedding. I just stood there and told her she ruined my wedding by coming when she knew she wasn't invited. She wore white. Her kids had been disruptive all day, and now my cake was destroyed. She needed to leave. The security guard and venue manager started escorting Bethany toward the exit while she continued to make a scene. I actually felt bad for her kids at that point because they looked confused and embarrassed, except the 3-year-old who was having another meltdown. Jonathan and I arranged and paid for an Uber to take them home safely, which cost us like $60 because they live in the suburbs. The crazy thing is, after they left, the entire mood of the reception changed. People started actually having fun. The DJ played our favorite songs, guests were dancing, and we were finally able to have our first dance without interruptions. We served the cake with the damaged side facing the wall. The photographer did an amazing job hiding the damage in the cake-cutting photos. Several guests came up to us afterward and said they were impressed with how we handled the situation. My college roommate hugged me and whispered that she'd been waiting 10 years to see me stand up to Bethany like that, which made me realize how long I've been putting up with Bethany's behavior. But then the next morning, everything got really bad. We woke up to dozens of notifications on our phones. Bethany had posted this tearful 15-minute video on Facebook and Instagram claiming I had violently expelled her and her traumatized children from a family celebration and had them manhandled by hired thugs. She called the security guard a thug when he was this super professional older gentleman who couldn't have been nicer about the whole situation. She tagged our entire family, the venue, Jonathan's workplace, and even the physical therapy clinic where I work. She was claiming I was mentally unstable and abusive to children and should be reported to the licensing board. What the frick? I'm a physical therapist. I work with kids all the time and have never had a single complaint. Then she called our parents, crying about how I had humiliated her in front of everyone. My mom called me 7 times while we were supposed to be getting ready to leave for our honeymoon. When I finally answered, she demanded that I apologize to Bethany for causing a scene and embarrassing the family. I lost it. I actually lost it. I told my mom that I would not be apologizing to someone who crashed my wedding, wore white, let her kids run wild, and then damaged property. I asked her why she wasn't demanding that Bethany apologize to me. She just kept saying, "She's your sister, and family is forever," and other useless platitudes that completely ignored the actual situation. My dad hadn't called, which I initially thought meant he disagreed with my mom, but I later found out he was just avoiding the whole thing completely. Classic dad move. He literally went fishing to clear his head while all this was happening. Jonathan and I were supposed to leave for our honeymoon that day, but we decided to delay it by 1 day to deal with this mess. I've always put family first, maybe too much, but this time I felt almost relieved, like I had finally stopped letting Bethany walk all over me, and it felt good, even though it was causing all this drama. With Jonathan's support, I decided to stand up for myself once and for all. We spent the entire day compiling evidence. Screenshots of text messages clearly showing Bethany was told multiple times she wasn't invited. Security camera footage from the venue showing her kids running unsupervised and damaging property. The venue manager was amazing and sent us everything. Photos of Bethany in her white dress next to me in my actual wedding gown. Statements from the venue staff about the disruption. an itemized list of damages that had been deducted from our security deposit, over $400. I posted all of this as a response to Bethany's video, tagging everyone she had involved with a calm explanation of what really happened. I wasn't even mean about it, just factual. I explained that it was an adults-only wedding that she crashed, wearing an inappropriate color, allowing her children to damage property, and then refusing to leave when asked politely. The reaction was immediate and intense. A bunch of relatives who had initially been commenting supportive things on Bethany's post suddenly went quiet. Then a few of them actually messaged me privately to apologize for believing her version. My aunt, mom's sister, called to say she'd been at enough family events to know exactly how Bethany operates and was proud of me for finally standing up for myself. The most shocking reaction came from Fred, Bethany's husband. Apparently, he had been away on a business trip during all this and had only seen Bethany's social media posts. He called me directly, which never happens, to apologize profusely. He said Bethany had told him they were invited to the wedding, but that I was just being difficult about the kids, and that's why he hadn't been there from the beginning. When he saw all the evidence, especially the texts showing they were never invited, he was furious. He told me this wasn't the first time Bethany had created similar situations and lied to him about it. He said he was done enabling her behavior and was insisting they go to family counseling. My dad finally broke his silence and called Bethany to tell her that her behavior was inexcusable, which apparently made her cry for real this time. He still thinks I should find a way to forgive her eventually, but at least he's acknowledging she was in the wrong. The venue and my workplace both removed themselves from Bethany's posts, and the venue actually sent us a partial refund of our security deposit as a goodwill gesture after seeing how we handled everything. It's been a month now, and things are still complicated. My mom still thinks I should be the bigger person and forgive Bethany, even though Bethany has not apologized or shown any remorse. She's now telling people I overreacted and miscommunicated about the invitation. Holiday gatherings are going to be so awkward for the foreseeable future. I'm not sure I even want to maintain a relationship with Bethany without seeing genuine change and a real apology. Jonathan and I have discussed possibly skipping family events where she'll be present for a while. While our wedding wasn't the perfect day we'd imagined, I'm actually proud of myself for finally setting boundaries. Jonathan says it's one of the reasons he married me, because even though it takes me a while, I eventually stand up for what's right. We're focusing on our marriage now rather than family drama. We used part of the security deposit refund to have our photographer edit Bethany out of the background of as many wedding photos as possible. Technology is amazing. And we're planning a small vow renewal for our first anniversary with only people who actually support us. Thanks again for all your advice and support, Reddit. I probably wouldn't have had the courage to stand up to Bethany without it. Edit. So many people are asking about the honeymoon. Yes, we still went even though we delayed it by a day. We had 8 amazing days in Hawaii, minus the occasional stress of checking our phones to see the latest family drama unfolding. Jonathan made me promise not to check social media after the 3rd day so we could actually enjoy ourselves. Edit 2. Someone asked if I think Bethany has some kind of personality disorder. I'm not qualified to diagnose anyone, but several family members have suggested she get therapy over the years, and she always refuses. Fred told me he's making it a condition of their marriage, continuing that she talk to someone professionally. Edit 3. About my parents. Yes, they're still together, even though they handle conflict very differently. My mom always takes Bethany's side, and my dad always avoids taking any side. It's been their dynamic for as long as I can remember. I'm considering suggesting family therapy for all of us, but I doubt my mom would agree to it. Edit 4. For those asking why I put up with Bethany's behavior for so long, it's complicated. When you grow up being told constantly to keep the peace and be the bigger person, it becomes your default. To be honest, I'm still in therapy, working through some of this stuff. But the wedding situation was like a breaking point for me. Edit 5. A few people have asked if Bethany might have crashed the wedding for financial reasons, like wanting free food/drinks. I don't think so. Her husband makes good money, and they live in a nice house. I think it's more about attention and control. She can't stand not being the center of attention at any family event. Edit 6. Yes, we did eventually get the professional wedding photos back. Most of them turned out beautiful. Our photographer was amazing at capturing moments when Bethany and her kids weren't in the frame. There are a few group shots where you can see them in the background, but overall, we have plenty of good photos to remember the day by.